I'm going to be walking you through my morning exercise routine, starting with the warm-up. This is about a 10-minute routine I do when I first wake up in the morning. Not every day, but on the days in which I work out. And this helps to wake me up because I'm usually pretty groggy and not very motivated. And then once I start getting the blood flowing, then you know, it's a little easier to work out. So I'm just going to walk you through the exercise. I'm not going to make you watch me do 20 reps of everything, but I will go step by step through what I do. You can see on the wall here I've got a TV. Usually I'll be watching the morning news, but it would be rude for me to turn my back to the camera, so I'm going to do these facing the camera. Now, the first thing I do, sorry as I talk into the wall, the first thing I do when I wake up is I grab my medicine ball and I just do some twisting movements just to limber up a little bit. I go side to side. You can't see, or maybe you can if you look in the mirror here. I'm kind of rotating my ankles as I do that. That's just to keep a tight core and a straight back, so I'm not going to injure my lower back. And then I start with the ball close to me, and gradually I'll move it further away. This is not a heavy medicine ball, it's only about 4 pounds. But the idea is the further away the ball is, the more force it's going to put on your back, so it's going to take more energy to resist. So I do side to side, and then I'll go at an angle, again with the hip rotation. I kind of stretch out a little bit, and I press the ball. It's almost like I'm throwing a basketball. And that starts to work the pectorals a little bit. And then the last thing I do is I'll just roll up and down my body and press the ball overhead. And this stretches out the hamstrings. And by this point, you're probably going to be breathing a little bit, so that's good. Just focus on taking deep breaths. That'll help wake you up. Okay, and then sometimes if I want to do something else, or I'm watching TV and I don't really want to move on to the exercise because there's an interesting story, I'll just kind of pass the ball to myself. And this is loosening up the shoulders and strengthening the arms, the upper arms. From there, again, because I'm still tired and not ready to work out, I will grab my Indian clubs. Usually I'm watching Al Roker at this point, and I'll just go through a series of movements just to loosen up the pectoral girdle. And you might hear some pops and some strange sounds if you just woke up. So I do I don't know what this exercise is called. I'll do it facing this way so you can see. There's a whole bunch of really elaborate movements you can do with Indian clubs. I tend to keep it pretty simple, just tossing the clubs back and forth and going at an angle, stretching out. And then if you want to get fancy, you can do some combinations, but you need to be pretty coordinated, and I haven't done these in a while, so I apologize if I look foolish. Just trying to demonstrate some of the different movements you can do. Once I'm done with the Indian clubs, I move on to my mace. The mace is the same general idea as the Indian club, but it's a two-handed implement. So the main exercise you do with this is called a 180. You want to keep your feet shoulder width apart, 360 if you're going up. Don't do what I just did and hit yourself in the back. That's because I'm talking. So yeah, you want to be very careful. 360, one hand over the other, 180. 180 is going back and forth, and that's, again, working on the delts primarily and the pectorals. Also the lats, as you're pulling it down. If, depending on, most of you won't have a mace, but depending on how heavy your mace is, you can use a wider grip and it'll be a little easier. But if you just want to get that maximum stretch and maximize your leverage, then you're going to try and keep both hands down at the pommel end. You can also use this to wake up the legs a little bit, doing a grave digger. I keep putting my thumb in my pocket when I do this. Again, I'm not twisting, I'm just bending at the hips. If you twist, that's a good way to injure yourself. So this one, I do use kind of a wider grip. And then finally, you can do an arm exercise, kind of a modified bicep curl that turns it into a compound movement, using some more upper back. And you have to stabilize yourself a little bit because the weight's all on one side. So that's my mace. After I'm done with the mace, I will move on to a kettlebell. What is this called? A kettlebell swing? I have a couple of kettlebells. Kettlebells, not kettleballs. I have a couple of kettlebells here on the floor. I'll usually start the day with a 50 pound. I weigh about 200 pounds, so 50 pounds is roughly a quarter of my weight. And then I have a 70 pound, which is a third of my weight. So I've already done this before, the first time I recorded this. I'm going to move up to the 70 pound. And this is just a very simple movement. Again, we're trying to bend from the hips and not stretch from the waist, because that's going to injure the lower back. So just get it going. And it's like you're one of those birds, those mechanical birds that drinks water. That's what it reminds me of. And I apologize if my form isn't great. I'll do between 10 and 12 of these. And this really works the glutes and the hamstrings and the quadriceps as you try and propel the implement forward. All right. So I've got my shoulders stretched out, I've got my hips loose. The next thing is the core, so for that I move to the bench. You can see it in the mirror there. And you might also be able to see I have some gymnastics rings. And these are really, I sometimes will do dips with them, but they're really just useful to help me get on my bench. So you can see I have the bench in a decline position. When I use it for bench press, I'll just use my glutes to stabilize myself. I keep it in the decline position because that's better for ab work. So to start out with, I just do a crunch. I'm not going all the way down. I'm only going to parallel with the ground. And I'm just trying to pull my lower legs into my chest. Of course, because my legs are fixed, my chest comes forward. So I do this exercise because I'm going to be doing deadlifts today. And the deadlift, again, a recurring theme is lower back problems. So I want to make sure I have my abs nice and tight to kind of counterbalance some of that load. And then finally, well, not finally, but the next exercise that's part of my warm-up routine, I do a couple pull-ups. Now, I'm only going to do one because I'm not that strong, but I'll do over the course of my entire workout, I'll work my way up to about 10 or 12. Now you can see my heart's pumping, I'm breathing heavy, I'm starting to get a little more active, even my presentation here hopefully is a little more energetic than it was when I just started the video. The next thing I do, if I'm not quite ready to get into the sets, I'll come over here to my dumbbell rack and I'll do some lateral raises. So again, this is just to stretch out the muscles of the upper back, get some blood flowing. On these lateral raises, it's very important that you try and pull it back so you're using your back muscles and you're not just, trying to use momentum to swing it up, because that puts the shoulder in a compromising position. And then you can do some anterior raises to work the front of the delt. And if I was doing an upper body day instead of a lower body day, which is what I'm doing, then I would continue to work my way through the dumbbells. I do overhead press, and I do some bicep curls, concentration curls. That would be next in my routine. But today I'm going to do leg day. So I think that's a good place to stop this video, because I just want to introduce my warm-up. But that's basically how I make the transition from being asleep to being awake and ready to lift some heavy weights.